Hello, it's Jessica. I am going to be talking about introverts, extroverts, and also this other category called ambivert, and what are the advantages of these different um, titles we place on people based on different traits that they demonstrate, typically in social settings. So, if you think about the workplace, if you think about networking events, even if you think about in personal life, when you're having get togethers or you're meeting new people or how you interact with your family, things like that. So, there's a lot of qualities that will be seen both positive and negative for extroverts and introverts. I think a lot of us know what many of them are, but some you may not really have thought about. Generally, in my experience, especially working as a recruiter, I've heard a lot of hiring managers say, I want, you know, type A personas, right? And typically that applies to folks that are in the extrovert category. So I'm going to share my screen because I want to provide a visual of what I mean when I'm talking about the spectrum. So, this is really what I'm meaning when I'm talking about, or making the comparison between an introvert and an extrovert. And so there's this spectrum, right? So we have extroverts on the left hand side, where we see that they typically, this is generally, they like social interaction, and I would even say thrive in social settings, right? In large social settings. And they're typically the center of attention. I think what I get away from that is that they're outgoing. They like to talk. They like to talk things through with other people. Big personalities, typically in a group setting. And they also have typically a bigger group of friends. And I would say, it could be a bigger group of friends, but it could also mean, they have a bigger network that they can pull from. So I think, again, when thinking about the career and workplace setting, extroverts, a big positive for them is that they will typically have a larger group of people that they can connect with and have this great network with, right? So that's a big plus. The other thing with extroverts that I would add in here as a positive thing is they are typically leaders. So I have found multiple articles that say most leaders, so if you think about, leaders of big companies, C-suite, CEOs, they identify themselves as extroverts. So there has been a lot of information that will say, um, you know, extroverts are typically good leaders or they like to lead. The other positive for extroverts is that they typically do come across as being more confident and more assertive. And in a place of business, that's really typically a good thing, right? Even when you're a job seeker, being more confident can sometimes really set you apart from another person with similar maybe qualifications and education and background and such. So the other thing that I wanted to note about extroverts are that, you know, in the form of jobs that require a lot of cold calling, sales, things like that, um, they tend to really thrive because of the extroversion, those qualities. They like to talk, they like to be outgoing. So that is something that, typically comes naturally for them, is to, interact with others in different ways, including, working in sales or cold calling. It just tends to come a little more naturally for them. But overall, the biggest thing that will show if you are an introvert or an extrovert is where you really get your energy from. So, with that, what I mean is, do you typically become more energized from being around a lot of people? Or do you feel like after you've been around a lot of people or big social events, you feel like um, you need to find some space for yourself, right? So that's what I mean by extroverts. Now, before I move into the negatives that come with extroverts, I want to flip over to the introverts. So they're on the opposite end of the spectrum on the right. And really, with them, a lot of the good qualities that, and I think people kind of overlook that there are good qualities in introverts, but things like being a good listener, definitely, they do tend to, along with being a good listener, which is shown here, they typically do a lot of thinking. They're very thoughtful, sometimes even analytical. They like to understand the information. They like to understand data and take time to think about their response, the information they're receiving. So it's that they come across as being a little slower, but it's because their thought process is a lot deeper than say an extrovert's. So they also tend to be more observant. They also, in leadership, when taking on leadership, they tend to be more compassionate leaders. So, again, going back to that thoughtfulness, they're really caring about the people that they're leading and tend to take more time to really show that compassion, really understand them, listen to them, and such. So, that's kind of where we get from, extrovert on one side of the spectrum and introvert. Something else I want to note here is that typically people are not on the extremes. So it's not often where you'll see someone that is 100% extroverted or 100% introverted. So we have come up with this thing called an ambivert, which I'll talk to after I dig into, this extroversion, introversion stuff. So we talked about extroverts, the positives for them, introverts, the positive for them, and then we'll talk about the ambivert. And really, when I think of an ambivert, that is more of a learned behavior. And so I'll talk about that in a bit. And hello, Minister of Music, Terrence. Welcome in. Hi, Barry. You're at work listening? Okay, cool. Very cool. Thank you. So extroverts. We talked about the good. Yes, they get their energy from being around people. They typically have large network, which again really comes in handy. And they're typically more confident, outgoing, and such. Now, what's the negative for extroverts? So some of the negative really comes to play with how they interact with people that are not extroverts a lot of the time. They can typically come off as, with their confidence level, that can be deemed as being too cocky. And so that puts a negative connotation, like it's just a little too extreme for folks that are maybe in the middle or maybe more introverted. The other thing is they don't tend to be good listeners. So we talked about the introvert being a good listener and how that is a big trait in the workplace. That's probably one of the biggest things that in any role I've seen, we people need good communicators, which a part of that is to be a good listener. And that is typically where extroverts find themselves having a little trouble because it's not that they're not listening, but they're not taking as much time to understand like introverts. Introverts take that time to think, process what someone's saying before they, react or say something. Extroverts typically are quicker. They hear you and then they immediately typically will react or say something. Well, oftentimes when you're listening to someone, you do need to actually take some time to process what they're saying, which with extroverts, they typically don't take that time. So it comes off sometimes for them as they're not listening or they speak too quickly, like they talk before actually taking the time to think. You'll get that sometimes. The other thing is that in comparison, we talked about the introvert sometimes really being that thinker, being more analytical, wanting to understand the data. Well, extroverts can come off as not really making decisions based on fact or analytics or data, but instead based on the feels or the emotions. Like, I feel like this is going to work. I want this, or their passion. And that can be a really bad thing when you think about, especially leadership. You can't typically react just based off of, let's talk about Elon Musk. He invested a ton of money into Bitcoin. Well, I would imagine he would have used a lot of data and information to make that judgment call, right? Well, sometimes with the extroverts, they're just so quick to react. Sometimes they're not really looking at the data and the information. They're like, we're doing this now. I want this. This is a good idea. Let's do it. The other thing is that, and again, especially considering folks that are maybe an ambivert, or introvert when they're in those settings with other people, right? Because our workplaces and social spaces consist of everyone, all types of people. They can come off as being aggressive. So taking that assertiveness and really being on that extroverted end of the spectrum, being seen as too aggressive or even controlling in some spaces. And typically, I will say, I missed over this when I was talking about the good for extroverts, but they can really work well with teams. Typically, they will be a leader of a team. They like to interact with others. They like to get other people's opinions. So they can really bring people together. But with people that are very extroverted and haven't really learned to adapt as well with people that are maybe introverts, they can come across as controlling. And so that gets into some other issues with being a team player. And hello, Cassandra, and hello, Latanya. Welcome in. Good morning. Got you running, cooking breakfast? That sounds good. Okay, so excuse me, as I clear my throat. So let's jump to introverts. We talked about the good listeners. They think before they speak. They are pretty observant. They're thoughtful. And a lot of times when they're leaders, they're very compassionate. What's the negative? So immediately the negative, and I've actually heard it a lot, introverts are shy. They don't speak up. They're loners. They don't like working a team as much. They take too much time to think, and they're oftentimes reserved. Now, something else that you'll see on this spectrum is that they have a few close friends. Well, in the work setting, you'll see that introverts tend to open up when they're in a smaller group setting. Let's say they're working with a colleague, they'll interact, they'll share their ideas, but then when they get in a bigger group setting, maybe the full department meeting, they tend to shy away from speaking up or asking questions. So that's kind of the negative when it comes to being very introverted. Now, I do want to get back to the idea that it's a spectrum, right? No one's like 100% an extrovert, or very few people are, right? Or 100% an introvert, because we learn to adapt from childhood as we, interact with other people. We really do learn to adapt, especially in the workplace, because we don't just work in silos. It's very difficult. Even some of the jobs that you'll think of, like extroverts, typically people say you need to work in sales if you're extrovert. If you're an introvert, you should work in IT, be a programmer. But you'll see in today's workplace, it's very difficult to work any job being an introvert, like completely introverted, so just wanting to work completely solo. You do have to work across teams. Even as a developer, you have your testing group, you have business analysts, you have your clients. So the people that tend to do better are this other group called ambiverts. So we went from extroverts, they get all their energy or get more energy from being around people. Introverts get their energy from being by themselves. Not saying they can't socially work with other people, and not saying extroverts can't spend time to themselves. But an ambivert is this person that really takes the qualities of an extrovert and an introvert, and they will project those qualities depending on the situation, the people they're around, or even their mood. So some positives of an ambivert are that they're very adaptable. People don't just tend to be an ambivert. They definitely have learned to adapt to being an ambivert. And so they pull these different qualities of being able to listen and speak. So they're typically very good communicators, right? They also have a good sense of trust. And this comes from the fact that they do have those leadership qualities, but they're also compassionate for others. So they're not just looking internally, they're not just looking externally to others. They have that balance of using, different qualities when it's needed. And then they do need a balance of some social time and some alone time. And I actually put myself in that bucket. I see myself as being naturally an introvert, but I've learned to be more of an ambivert just through growing up and then also working. I'm a recruiter, so I have done plenty of cold calls, right? I've done many networking events online, in person, and I've learned that more behaviors of the extrovert just in my business. So, I do like to socially interact with folks, but then I do need my alone time as well. And I it's interesting because I do feel like people will be on a different spectrum depending on really what's going on once they've really learned to adapt. So the benefits of the ambivert are definitely going to be, again, good communication, really being able to balance and really thrive off of other people. So if they are in a room full of introverts, they can kind of, bring their tone down, bring some of the, maybe their animation, their voice, bring some of the, assertiveness down a bit and really match the folks that they're around. Versus, someone that's very extroverted, they typically bring that energy, that extroverted energy with them, regardless of who they're around. So if they're in a room full of introverts, hey, they're still their extroverted selves. They're not really adapting to those other people. And so that's where those issues come in of, oh, the other folks seeing that they're cocky or aggressive or controlling or they're not listening, right? Because something else that extroverts do is they tend to speak up a lot more. So if you're around all introverts, one thing that you can do is really ask for others' opinion versus really controlling that conversation, right? So instead of just jumping in and speaking to every single point that comes up and throwing only your ideas out there, well, for an extrovert around introverts, they will need to pause more, take more time to say, okay, I have a thought, but let me pause and see if someone else wants to speak, especially in this virtual workplace, right? Virtual environment. And hello, Partly Cloudy. Welcome in. Hi, One Busy Mama. Hello, hello. King of Kills, welcome in. And King of Kills says, I'm definitely leaning more towards the introvert end. Okay, interesting. Very good. And Cassandra's saying, oh my, I think I may be an ambivert. Okay. So you're in that category where you're taking kind of the best of both worlds, right? That's awesome. So, oh, and One Busy Mama is saying, I think I may be an introvert mostly. Okay. Okay, very cool. So yeah, it really depends, right? It just depends. And for some reason, I'm not able to share the comments again. I don't know why. I've never had this issue before. I'm having an issue on the Mac, but it sounds like we got a room not of extroverts, but of introverts mainly and ambiverts. So, how can you actually move from an introvert to an ambivert though? Like, how can you, if you're in a room full of extroverts or if you're in a mixed group, what can you do to really find your voice? Because something that, introverts typically will have more challenge with in the workplace is being more present, being visible. Because if you're in a room full of extroverts, how do you get in a word edgewise, right? And I've had that experience where, especially with working with men, it's like they're chiming in, they're jumping in so much. It's like, okay, well, they just said what I was going to say, or I just needed a minute to think. So, one big tip that I always recommend for introverts ahead of a meeting is to find out if you can get the agenda or the topping points, what's going to be discussed ahead of time for the meeting. Because as we discussed, You really do, as an introvert, you need that time to think, right? So, knowing that you need a little more time because you do a deeper thought process, get the information up front. And so what extroverts can do to make sure there's balance to support, our introverted folks is to share an agenda out ahead of time with a meeting. Not just pull up a meeting and, roll up and say, okay, here's what we're going to talk about, but pull up any points, information, and share that with your group ahead of time. That can be really helpful. The other thing is really putting a lot of onus on the introverted person. And this is something I've had to do in my work life, before I've kind of made that adjustment to being an ambivert. So you definitely want to find an opportunity to speak up. Sometimes for introverts, that can come in as, having some things prepared that you want to talk about in a meeting or questions you want to and ask those immediately at the beginning. Because, after a meeting starts to get going, a lot of times you're going to have that kind of competition of everyone's jumping in and where can you really, jump in and share your opinion. But typically at the beginning of a meeting, folks aren't as willing to jump in and talk so much. So you can actually be the one that starts off, the conversations with different questions or some findings or information you have. Again, typically introverts have a lot of data, they have a lot of information. So if you've done some research, share those insights with the group. A lot of times, other folks are either thinking about it or they like to hear from you. So I think that's a really good way to make that shift or start to make that shift from being an introvert to an ambivert. Mm. One busy mama is saying you do like to see the agenda before. Yeah, ahead of time. That's true. Yes, definitely. And, I don't know why sometimes people just don't do it. But it's very, very helpful to have the agenda ahead of time. And then it doesn't really take too much time, right? It does not take much time at all to just share the agenda out or share, when you say agenda, it sounds a little bit formal, but put some bullets together, put it in the, calendar invite and say, hey, this is what we're talking about, or send a quick email. So, yes, definitely. The other thing with moving from introvert to ambivert will be really okay. This kind of takes some efforts, but putting yourself in more social settings, going to company events, like once we're back to a more normal scenario, going out, just being seen, you being visibly seen is a lot better when you're able to go out to different work events. Even if you can't stay the full time, even if you're not smoozing like the extroverts, if you're not hopping from every group and talking and, talking to so many people, find a couple of folks that you can connect with, have a goal of meeting some new people. And then once you're feeling a bit tired or your energy is a little drained, that's your cue to go. But just taking those little steps to get out and be a little more social can really help make that shift to being an ambivert. The other thing will be, again, we heard about the extroverts. They like to lead. One great thing that will push introverts is either leading a project or taking opportunities to lead other people. You do learn a lot of different qualities. You really learn how to adapt to other people when you're taking a leadership role in some way, whether that's leading a project again or leading people. So that would be my recommendation there. Overall, I think, my key takeaways here is that there is this spectrum. Like people should know that there's a spectrum. You don't when people say like, are you introvert, are you extrovert? You don't have to fall in those categories. You don't have to be in the extreme. And I think the other piece is to just remember there are positives and negatives to both extroverts and introverts. A lot of times, and this is something I don't agree with, is extroverts are typically seen in a more positive light in the workplace. And I don't think that's right. I think there needs to be a balance. You can't have a team, you can't have a group full of extroverts because who's going to do the thinking? Who's going to do the deep thinking and listening and, showing a bit more of that compassion? And you can't have a room full of introverts. Who's going to be the one that's talking things out loud? Who's going to be leading the teams or pulling the teams together? Who's going to be the more assertive, confident one in certain scenarios? So those are just some thoughts that I had on that. And then the other thing I want to share really quickly, let me see here, because I pulled up some different articles, and one of them was more about this ambivert, like how do you become an ambivert? Okay, it's this one. I'm going to share the screen. Okay. Let me know if you can still hear me okay, if you're in the comments. So this article was titled The Perks of Being an Ambivert, and it was by this online site called medium.com. I've seen some different articles by them, but the first thing is what I mentioned, the adaptability. So the biggest advantage for ambivert, so Cassandra, this is for you. Okay, thank you, One Busy Mama. Thank you for confirming you could hear me. Okay, perfect. So, okay, those people in the middle, they do have that ability to be more outgoing when the situation calls for it, like at, social events, and they can be a little bit more subdued, like in important meetings. Because I'm sure we've all seen that, those instances where those really extroverted people don't really know how to tone it down and say an interview. I've actually seen this. Oh my goodness. This happened recently. We had some folks interview, and one person just came across as way too over the top, way too over the top. Like they even came off as very cocky, too aggressive in the interview. And it was like, that was something that is difficult for me as a recruiter to really, it's hard to change that behavior, right? I can influence a hiring manager that says, well, they seemed a bit shyer. Well, they may be shy because they're nervous. When someone's very outgoing and kind of rubs the person the wrong way to the point where they come across as cocky or too aggressive, that's tough for me because it's like such a negative connotation. It's hard to say, well, maybe they were nervous. Most of the time, people will just think that's how you are. So, with an ambivert, they can really balance between the two as it's needed. The other part was just the balance. Um, you know, Extroverts, and this is something I didn't actually point out earlier, but typically extroverts tend to take more risk, and sometimes those risks aren't even built on the data, as I mentioned earlier. But ambiverts come in and they tend to take more calculated risk, and this could be in terms of finance, right? So if I wanted to invest a bunch of money, well, extrovert might say, we're putting all of our money in Bitcoin. We're putting all of it in there. Let's just ride this roller coaster. Let's see what happens. Like I've just left this webinar. I'm doing it, right? And ambivert would take the approach of, let's look at the data. Let's maybe put a percentage. It seems like people put like 5 to 10% of their investment in there. Let's do this because I've seen the data and this and that, and it seems like a good decision, right? They make more calculated risk. So they kind of see it could fail, it could be great. Let's slowly enter this. And then an introvert may be very careful, may not invest, or may take more time to think about the investment. So again, that downside when it comes to an introvert, where they're taking more of that time to think instead of just jump in there, take, make the assessment you need to make, right? And then take that action. So we've got a balance of both. So the ambivert isn't just waiting and then the opportunity passes them by, but they also aren't saying, let's just throw all of our money in there, right? So they really are able to find that balance. Now, what do they find is best for business? Who's the most successful? Well, a lot of folks say that ambiverts are some of the most successful because, oh, it's telling me to sign in. I don't want that. But because they can bring that energetic and intense vibe into the office without some of the negative. They can really figure out, okay, what do I need in this situation? What do I need to bring in my role? And they really can find that balance and bring those most valuable qualities of an extrovert and an introvert, and you bring that into the workplace. So they're able to work across teams without having that sense of, oh, this person's too cocky or they're too aggressive or they're controlling, but then also not being the person that's too quiet or doesn't want to jump in or doesn't want to raise their hand to help out. And a lot of times, introverts, you'll see that maybe they're a little slower to say, hey, I'll jump in and I'll help out. It's seen as they don't want to help. It's seen as, oh, they're lazy or they don't want to do anything. But no, where that really stems from is, if you were to ask them, hey, would you like to help out with this project? A lot of times they're going to say, yeah, I'd love to, right? But with introvert, they're thinking a lot. They're thinking about, okay, what role should I play in this scenario? Should I jump in? Should I not? They're, sometimes even overthinking. I've even done that plenty of times. Like it's like I'm overthinking this. Let me just do it, right? So it doesn't come from a bad place. It's just that they may still be in thinking mode. They may be thinking about, what do they want to do? What do they want to help with? Do we even need their help? So it shouldn't be taken as a bad thing. But when you get to the ambivert, they really, again, they find that balance of when they should jump in. And thank you, Cassandra, for letting me know the sound is good. And Cassandra said she agrees. So you agree with what Maya Angelou said. When a person show you who they are, believe them. Okay. That is very true. Very, very true. So, this other point that I love, and I've already mentioned it, but I'll kind of reinforce this, speaking versus listening, because you have to have two. A lot of times people immediately think extroverts are great communicators because they talk more. They're talking more. They're kind of, the life of the party. They're energetic. But again, we don't really, or we tend to forget that the big part of communication is also listening. So a lot of times people think extroverts are talking too much or they're talking too quickly. And you may even think, gosh, did they even think before they said that? And extroverts may find themselves in a sticky situation because they've accidentally said something that may have offended someone because they were quick to talk. Versus introverts, again, we talked about maybe they don't talk up enough, and a lot of leaders will say, I just want more, from you. I want you to talk up more. I want you to share more of your ideas. I heard this a lot when I first started my job as a recruiter. I heard, we want you to talk up more. And I felt like I was talking up. But looking back, because I've grown into this ambiverted person, I definitely see like I talk up a lot more. And actually, people are pretty surprised when I tell them, like, hey, I actually relate more to being an introvert, but, I find myself in the middle as an ambivert, and they're like, "What? You're not an extrovert?" Just because I do talk up more. Now, part of that may be because I don't love silence. I do not like silence in meetings. So if no one's talking, I'll come up with a question real quick or some feedback real quick just to break the ice, right? But ambiverts, they really are in the middle. They have a mix of both. They know the value in bringing different ideas, questions, and really contributing to different conversations, whether it's in the workplace or even your personal life, but they can also take that time to listen. And so it really makes things go a lot smoother when you have this balance of someone that's listening to others, asking for others' input, and then also sharing their ideas. And so the last point in here, which is what I talked about, and they're saying ambiverts got it all, don't they? Well, ambiverts were just not created. When you're younger, a lot of times you will be on that spectrum that we talked about. You'll be more extroverted or introverted. You'll be more on the extreme. So I'll bring up this chart again, but you'll find that you haven't learned the behaviors yet, right? You haven't learned how to really be the balance of both. So you'll see with kids, a lot of times you'll quickly be able to, kind of put them in a category of, oh, they're extroverted because the girl is playing, they're jumping around, they're talking all the time, they're screaming and yelling and all this. a lot of extroverted behavior. And then you'll see another kid where they're very quiet, they're shy, they just want to read their book. That was me as a kid. I was like, leave me alone. I just want to sit here and read my book. And I was the only child. So I think that was, well, kind of. I see myself as the only child because my brother was 20 years older than me. And so when I was a kid, he seemed more like my uncle than my brother. But, I was definitely introverted. I listened to other people. I was really good at reading. I was really good in school. I like to just do my artwork and do things by myself. And I had like, I think 2 friends in like elementary school. And then later on in high school, I, had more friends. But yeah, I had, my close friends. And now today I have like a circle of people that I can network with, but I would still say I have a few like I can count on one hand people that I consider true friends of mine. And then the others are just acquaintances or people in my network that I like, they're definitely people I will connect with, but they're not close friends. Versus, extroverts, think about in school, they know everybody. They got everybody's their friend. They're that kid that says everyone's their friend, right? So that's where that comes from, that spectrum thinking. But then as you get older, you grow, you're in the workplace, you find that you become more of an ambivert a lot of the time as you develop. If you can adapt, you guys know I refer to the book a lot, Who Moved My Cheese? You have to be able to adapt. And so ambiverts will find themselves in a really good place, or those that can adapt. Now, there's this other chart that I do want to share briefly because it shows a little bit of a breakdown between the ambivert. Let me see if I can find it. I think it's this one. Okay, so this is a chart I found on Quora. I was trying to just get the image, but I'm still learning this MacBook, okay? And I couldn't figure it out because I can't do a right click, which I'm used to. But anyway, let's see if I can make it bigger. There we go. So this chart is basically breaking down introvert, extrovert, but then within the ambivert, they're showing here ambivert with introvert functions and then an ambivert with extrovert functions. So they broke it down even more with an actual percentage, right? So I thought that was pretty interesting. So you can even within an ambivert. So I think my question for Cassandra, if she's still in here, would be, do you find that being an ambivert, do you feel like you would be an ambivert with introverted functions or an ambivert with extroverted functions? So it's just more of what's kind of the stronger or more dominant side. And even One Busy Mama was saying that she was more of an introvert. So she might actually be, and I question that because again, when you're in the workplace, when you're doing, you're connecting with other people, typically you are going to be more of an ambivert versus being on these 2 extremes. And so One Busy Mama might actually be an ambivert with introvert functions. And then no one really said they were an extrovert in here, but if you're an extrovert, you may be an ambivert extrovert functions. If you found that ability to adapt and bring in some of the characteristics of the other, which might be an introvert or an extrovert, then you might be somewhere, in between, and you may be able to call yourself an ambivert. I think this is really where most people are on that spectrum. They're somewhere in the middle. And One Busy Mama says, yeah, I'm probably in between. Okay. So probably an ambivert with introvert functions, maybe. Very good. Good to know. Hey, Zero, welcome in. How are you? Welcome, welcome. Let me see if I can get back into some comments here. Oh, okay. Now I can show. That is so weird. So One Busy Mama said, I mean, I like some interaction, but it's not needed. I do talk a lot. Yeah, so One Busy Mama, I would say, based on sharing that, you might be more of an ambivert. You may be more of an ambivert with just some introverted qualities or functions. And you like the agenda ahead of time. Yep. I was always that way too. Like if I could get the information ahead of time and I don't have like a meeting right beforehand, I can prep a little bit and be ready, and be able to contribute a little bit more. But even if, in the life of a recruiter, a lot of times meetings are back to back, calls are back to back, set up. So I only have a little bit of time maybe between meetings. I'll still chime in with something in most cases because I mean, I like to talk, if that doesn't show from YouTube, but I definitely like to talk. I think a lot of folks in HR like to talk, but we do still have some introverted people as well. And one busy mama is saying that's so true. Cassandra said earlier that she agreed with what Maya Angelou said. When a person show you who you are, believe them, right? King of Kill says I can be sociable or even the center of attention, but I shy away from most of those situations. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. And again, it goes back to, and I think we always have to remind ourselves about this. The extrovert definition really is based on where you really get your energy. So if you feel like you're more energized when you're in social settings or you're around a lot of people, you might be an extrovert, if you think about it that way. And then for introverts, if you find that you're feeling drained when you're around a lot of people and that you get your energy really when you're alone and you have more of your me time, you may be more of an introvert, right? And then the balance where the ambivert comes in is really that learned behavior. So it's not so much as, thinking about where you get your energy from, but really how you've been able to learn and adapt and, kind of interact with people based on, your growth during your time working or in school or, what have you. Zero says, I only talk to certain people. I couldn't too much about interacting with most. So you don't care so much about interacting with most people and you only talk to certain people. So yeah, I would say zero, then you're probably more of an introvert. Or you may fall into the ambivert with introvert functions. If you have a really close circle of friends, you don't like talking too much with too many people. Maybe you don't like meeting new people because extroverts, they definitely like meeting new people. That's something about me. I think that's why people don't see me as an introvert because when I am around more people, I'm trying to meet everybody a lot of time, obviously pre-pandemic. Now I'm just kind of like, hey, and I don't want to no come too close. But I generally like to meet new people and kind of hear their story and things like that. So yeah, that's interesting. And hello, Mr. 100 Rounds. How are you? Rise and grind. Yeah. The wordsmith says, I'm introverted and only feel energetic around other introverts. Okay. That's a really big trait of introverts. So, and you'll understand too with introverts, it's not that they can't show some of those extroverted traits of, leading and really talking up and being more outgoing. But in a group of, 50 people, they're probably not going to show those traits. But when you get into a group of people they know, maybe one or two colleagues or friends, you'll see that they demonstrate more of that extroverted behavior because they're more comfortable and energetic, as you point out, the wordsmith, around those other people. That's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. One busy mama saying, yeah, I don't really like meeting new people. It makes me uncomfortable. Uh-huh. Okay. So yeah, definitely closer to the introvert with that sense because introverts will find, I think of that song by Drake, no new friends, no new friends, right? He's like, no, I got my people, we good, right? So introverts definitely tend to be that way of, it takes a little more time to get to know them. They're not and that's where that idea that introverts are reserved because it takes more time for them to open up. They're more observant. And that's me in some situations. Like I kind of read the room. Especially if I get any kind of vibe, I'm not sharing too much information about myself. I'm just going to listen. But if I feel good vibes around people, I'll share. I'll open up to you. We can talk. So that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that one, busy mama. So glad you were able to join. And you're saying, "Hey, everyone coming in. Look at you networking. One busy mama, the introverted extrovert." Zero said, "I can't be put in the box." Okay, well, that's a good, and that's why, you know what, Zero? That's why I wanted to bring up this conversation and really highlight the fact that it's a spectrum. It's not that you only can be an introvert always, right? Or you can only be an extrovert always. And so you find that you can define yourself a little bit, right, with introvert or extrovert. But again, with ambiverts, you kind of shift. You make this shift between when do I need to be more extroverted and when do I need to be more introverted? And we kind of mold ourselves based on the other people that we're around. There's this thing called mirroring that people often talk about. And they say it's very positive because people open up more to people that seem more like them. I see this in hiring a lot, and something that we are really fighting against with biases. But in hiring, you tend to see a hiring manager say, say things like, I want this person to be X, Y, and Z. And oftentimes it's because that's how they are, or maybe that's how their top performer is, or most of their team is like this. So they don't see the benefit in bringing in someone that brings a different background or perspective. But oftentimes they really can. So we have to, as HR professionals, help them along the way and help them see some of those things. One busy mama was agreeing with the wordsmith. So wordsmith is saying, I can talk online. I don't like people coming to the house all the time. It feels like I'm not at home. In my home, especially because as a woman, I'm not always dressed up. You know what? That brings up a good point because, something that I do find for some people with the whole remote life, it's caused them to be more reserved, while others, it's caused them to be able to speak up more. They felt more comfortable as well. And it may be from your point here, because as a woman, I'm not always dressed up, that thinking, and we talked about this during our code switching conversation, having that feeling that someone's judging you, that definitely does not help and make you feel like you want to share information if you feel like people are looking at you and judging you based on not only what you're saying, and if that's good enough, right? But also how you look. They're looking, my hair isn't done right, right? I've had those moments. Oh, my hair isn't done right. Is this person looking at my hair? Or, oh my gosh, I didn't wear makeup today. Is this person looking at my, I don't know, whatever. Actually, I oftentimes I do wear makeup to the workplace. Even like when I go out still, I'm like, somebody's gonna see this face, right? But still, you think about all these things and what makes you most comfortable. So I definitely feel you there, the wordsmith, for sure. Gracious hosts go from one to another. Oh, yes, I will definitely be visiting you. Thank you for the visit. I appreciate that. Zero said, I actually talked about this on my channel last year. Okay. What was your feedback? I'll have to check out that video. So, anyone in the chat right now, if you're interested, let me bring you back up. If you're interested in hearing more about this topic, Zero posted a video. Zero, can you actually share the title of the video so people can look forward? So, if you're interested in more topic about introverts versus extroverts, you may want to check out Zero's channel. One busy mama is saying, oh man, I never realized how much more I enjoy working from home. I have been doing it for the past 7 years and I love it. And not having to have those interactions on a daily basis. Interesting. Yes. So it has been interesting that, it's some introverts have really thrived. Excuse me. Some introverts have really thrived in the work from home lifestyle, while others, they've been less visible. Like I can even recall in meetings I had with people that, the people that were very reserved in the office, some speak up more, a few speak up more, but a lot have actually been less interactive. Like there's one person that unless they're specifically called out, they do not say anything in the meetings. And it's hard to, it's sad to see because when they do speak, they offer a lot of great perspective. And so with introverts, when introverts speak, like One Busy Mama, they have some great insight, right? Great insight. And it's like, oh my gosh. So when people hear it, they're like, oh my gosh, can you please talk more? Like, we want to hear from you. But I think it's because they really do listen. They think, they're very thoughtful, right? And so when they're sharing something, it's real information. They're not just talking to think something through or just to kind of fill up the space. Like extroverts can come across as doing, right? They're talking and talking because they're thinking out loud. They're trying to, get this conversation going. And so they're adding, different things that may not be quite as thoughtful or, thought provoking, but it does help push the conversation. And sometimes, and that's why I say there's a balance. You need both extroverts and introverts, because extroverts can really push the conversation further a lot of the time, and introverts can really bring in those thoughtful, profound perspectives, questions that maybe the extrovert hadn't thought about because they were so quick to, make this decision. Like, we're moving to this new platform, and then the introvert says, well, have you thought about this or that, right? And so that is very, very helpful. Zero says, people got a call before they come over to my house because I feel like people shouldn't be trying to come over my house uninvited. Zero's following up on the wordsmith's point earlier. Yeah, I don't really like that either, guys. Just rolling up on somebody. My mom actually was asking me, because I have an uncle that lives here in Dallas, well, Fort Worth. And she was like, oh, did you see your uncle? You should have stopped by. And I was like, I'm not just going to pull up on him. I like to be invited. I don't just roll up on people's, their houses. So I don't know. That's my perspective too, because if someone just rolled up on me, I like to have that heads up of, hey, I'm coming over, right? One busy mama said, I don't mind having guests at the house prior to the pandemic, but it always gave me super anxiety. But I think that is more related to my OCD and being clean versus people because I was familiar with them. Exactly. So you got to do a little preparation first, right? Totally hear you. Um, the wordsmith said, I work from home and my cousin comes over and told my mom that I left myself go. What? I was mad because I don't even want them over in the first place, but they just come over without calling. Oh, that's super annoying. That is super annoying. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I'd feel like, how dare you come to my house and tell me I let myself go? Like, what? That's really weird, the wordsmith. I feel you. Um, oh my goodness. And one busy mama says, I am more productive at home. Yes. So I did talk about this on another video, talking about the remote life. I actually talked about remote work multiple times on my channel. And I definitely have seen more positive on work from home. And some employers are saying, like, no, I am not, you're not telling me I'm coming back into the office because I've worked from home for a year and I've been very productive. And, there's been an increase in my productivity and things like that. So yes, definitely, it can be very distracting to be in an office, but I definitely can see some of the points about, people collaborating more. And some people do work best in an office. Other people work best working at home. So definitely. And it depends on the distractions you have at home, right? If you have a ton of distractions at home, sometimes it is better for you to go into an office. Now, if you have more distractions in the office versus at home, it may be best for you to work at home. And one busy mama saying, yeah, I understand those who live off social interactions. Yes. Right, one busy mama, that is rude. The wordsmith has been through it. I can't even imagine. Like, see, that's where that extroversion would go off because for me, I it takes a lot for me to get upset. Like I'm pretty calm nature, but when you do something that makes me upset, like I will go off. Like I've gone off a few times and it was the last time I actually went off, unfortunately, it was a family member. And they were like shocked because I'm like very, I'm calm. I'm happy, happy go lucky a lot of times. And I'll tell you what I feel without getting heated. But anyway, with that situation, I was heated, and they were like, they didn't know what to do. They did not know what to do. My brother is the same way. He's a Taurus. Once he gets upset, it's like an explosion went off, and it's like you're not calming that down. You just gotta let him be, and he'll calm down eventually. But it is something. One busy mama says, "Yep, that's me. I say nothing in the meetings." So you're the one busy mama, because for me, I'll tend to question someone, but I don't like calling people out. So I'll typically message someone and be like, "Hey, do you have a point about this, or do you want to share this? Are you comfortable sharing this?" And then they'll speak up. So you might be one of those types. I probably send you an IM and be like, "Hey, you want to share about da da da?" Because I know that typically it looks better when you can speak up. So for my introverts that aren't talking up in meetings, what my ask or my challenge to you would be to, if you have an agenda beforehand, be that first person to speak up and share your thought on something, or find ways to speak up maybe online if you have a workplace, or some type of social, place where you can comment or engage virtually, by writing and, making comments and things like that. Engage that way, make a post, do things like that, because that's another way that you can show visibility without, if you don't like talking up in meetings, people will see you posting and see that you're still bringing a lot of good points and, bringing up some conversation. So, luckily, in this world of virtual life, we don't always have to be on the phone or in a meeting or when we're sharing our ideas. Zero the Infinite says the title of the video is The Bridge Builder, Introvert or Extrovert. I wish I could put the link in here, but I can't. Let me see if I can find it. The Bridge Builder. The Bridge Builder. Interesting title. Hopefully you guys can't hear me typing. I know that's super awkward. It's like, what? It sounds really bad when, like, I've heard people typing online, and for some reason, I don't know why, but it sounds so bad. Okay, let's see if I can find it. Oh, I see it. I'll put the link in there. If I can. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is Zero's video. I'll have to check that out later. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the comments. Oh, wait, no. How do I copy and paste on here? Guys, I'm still trying to figure this thing out. Oh, that's annoying. I don't know how to do it. Because I normally do Control V, and it doesn't work. Oh, maybe it's Command. Oh, I got it. Yay, I figured it out. Command V. Okay. So that is the link to Zero's video. And let me go ahead and, I don't know if I can pin it. Let me see here. There we go. I can pin it at the top. So it is pinned at the top of the page. All right. So now I skipped over some comments here. Oh, I skipped over a lot of comments. I'm so sorry. Okay. So the wordsmith said, I'm also Black, so my hair is held to different standards. Oh my goodness. The wordsmith, I wish you were in our conversation yesterday, or maybe you were. We were talking about light skin versus dark skin, and we did bring up the point about Black hair and, the expectations there in the workplace. So yeah, I'll be having a part 2 to that discussion soon. But yes, that's a great point. It's like, a lot of things that you feel like you're being judged on when you're face to face with someone. I totally understand that. One busy mama. Well, that is about your space and boundaries. Exactly. You have OCD too? Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, you gotta have your boundaries. You have to have your boundaries. I might have to make a video just talking about boundaries, especially with family. Like, I find it has been easy to set your boundaries with other groups, like, people that you're getting to know, because you have the opportunity. They don't know you yet. You can tell them, like, look, this is what it is, or you can show them this is, how you want to be treated, or this is how you interact with me, right? But yeah, you definitely have to set those boundaries, especially with family. And that was actually a part of the scenario that I had why I went off on my family member, because it was about the boundaries, and the boundaries were getting crossed. And I just blew up, and it was just a mess. But I will say I felt good. I was like, I feel fine. I feel I feel fine. I did have to go back and like tell them, like, hey, this is why I was saying that, and this is where I was coming from. King Akilah is saying introverts are great thinkers, but we're also afraid that if we speak up, we won't be understood or we will be rejected. So, okay, you know what? Here's my thinking on that, because I used to be that way, King Akilah, really thinking about, and I still get those thoughts of like, how will this message be perceived? What will people think? But for the most part, you have to go beyond that. And a lot of times, like some of the decisions I made later in life, like with even moving locations and things, I always bring it back to fear. And if I'm afraid of it, I need to do it. I was actually afraid, actually almost having a nervous breakdown right before I was going to be moving to New York City. And actually two girlfriends actually helped me. I had to call them and they had to kind of talk me down. Like it was a big change, because I had only ever lived, well, I can't say I only ever lived in St. Louis, Missouri. I lived in Spain for a while, but I don't know, it had been a very long time before I lived in another space. I lived in Kansas City with my grandmother, but that was not a big adjustment, right? I was a kid. Moving to New York City, that was a huge change. I was afraid, but I did have to go back to, if it makes me afraid, I have to do it, right? And so with these things, this is why I challenge you as an introvert. Share something, just speak up once. And here's the thing, you may find that there's silence on the other end, or you may find that other people chime in. But hey, at least you have shared your, thought process. And what's the worst thing that will happen? There's silence and no one agrees with you. That's fine. Speak up. Share what you think. A lot of times what you'll find though is that other people will say, "Oh, I was going to ask that same thing," or "I actually had that question," or, "Here's my opinion on that." I think it also depends on your workspace. If you really are in an environment where you feel comfortable and you feel like you can speak up, that makes all the difference. And I would say, King of Kill, I would wonder, in those instances where you don't feel like you can speak up, or you're kind of afraid of how what you'll be saying will be understood or be rejected, I do wonder, are you working in a space where ideas are really celebrated and people want to hear what other people think, right? Or is it one of those environments where the other people are very judgmental, right? Because there are some workplaces, I've been in workplaces where I just didn't want to speak up, to King of Kill's point, because there is that one or two people in the group. Maybe they don't like you. Maybe they're just always judging. Maybe they just chewed out, or what is the phrase? Chewed and spit out somebody else for saying something. Then you don't speak up. And I think leaders of teams have a big responsibility to make sure people are feeling included and feeling welcome and feeling like they can speak up, because how do you, how do you expect your team, like if you as a leader are saying, well, my team doesn't speak up, well, what do you do when someone does speak? Do you reinforce them and say that's a good point, yada yada yada? Do you thank them for their contribution? That stuff is really important. Like if people are hearing crickets, or if you speak up and then the person says, no, you did that wrong, or that's the wrong thing to do, or yada yada. Well, do you think that person is going to speak up ever again? Probably not. Probably not. I think in those cases where it is a situation where maybe someone said something that wasn't right, take them aside and tell them on the side. I don't think it's good tell people in person. I've seen that happen multiple times, and it doesn't make the person chewing the person out feel look look good. It makes them look really bad, and it keeps other people from contributing, whether they're extrovert or introvert, right? I've seen an extrovert get slammed and they did not participate for the rest of the meeting. And this was a very extroverted male. And yeah, so it happens. It does happen. One busy mama said, I have a ton of distractions, but they are my own kids and things. I just do not like being around a bunch of people or having to socialize constantly. I feel you. I don't have kids, so it's like I don't have that distraction, but there can be other distractions. Like if you have three dogs at home and they're barking around, and if you got, I don't know, a mom or another family member staying with you or a friend, like I can get that. The noise in the office is terrible. The air, the cleanliness, etc. Yes, and I think that's going to be a big thing for the return to work. Are people going to feel comfortable in the workspace? Because if you're saying to your employer, "I'm getting anxiety because I'm worried about the cleanliness of my workspace. I'm worried about the other person next to me. I'm worried about this and that," it's going to be really difficult for employers to say, you have to come back to the workplace, like to mandate that, right? Because that's kind of getting into the health category. Someone's mental or physical well-being is being affected from just being in the office, and you can make that point because with the pandemic, that's really been it. It's been concerns about cleanliness, it's concerns about being in proximity to other people, not really knowing where other people have been and things like that. So I get it. And not even thinking about this, but for the future, I think people will consider that. The wordsmith says, my aunt and her daughter are super problematic and competitive and always have to whisper your success and highlight your failures. They're extroverted, but in a toxic way. So it sounds like the wordsmith, your aunt and her daughter are on that spectrum. They're on that far extreme side of the spectrum with extroversion. So they have some of those negative traits we talked about. Really, sometimes they can come off as loud, they're controlling, aggressive. They don't think before they speak. So, like in that situation where they told you, oh, like you let yourself go or something. An introvert, we typically like one busy mama. One busy mama probably would have thought that, ooh, you know, oh, Jessica, you're looking rough, right? And instead of saying it, she'd go, maybe that's not the best thing to say. Instead, I'm going to ask Jessica, how are you? How you doing? How you holding up in the, pandemic and everything? So that's some of the, that's the downside of extrovert. They can definitely come across, and that is very problematic in a workplace where, especially where you have more sensitive folks, where you have, scenarios where people are working very closely together, because they will run into those instances where they're rubbing someone the wrong way. So I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. I think for you, the wordsmith, setting those boundaries will be really good for you. You have to set those boundaries. And sometimes setting the boundary is just taking space away from them and saying, like, hey, you can't come over unless you give me a heads up. Or you can't come over for these next 2 weeks. I'm taking me time, or whatever it is. You have to think about yourself first before you can really share love or, give of yourself to others. Always have to take care of yourself first. As a broken person, how are you going to help someone else, right? One busy mama is saying, I know they gave a position to some new hires instead of me, and I think it was because they're more outspoken or outgoing and willing to do way more. You know what? That's so interesting. So I'm going to share something soon. I think next week, after the next week, I'll be sharing something because I had an instance of this. Yeah, the whole visibility thing. So this is why I definitely challenge introverts to really show, hey, I can speak out too. I have opinions as well, and really show that quality. And it is a push, right? It is a change, it's an adjustment. But I do feel like there are benefits to it. There are benefits. And I'm not saying you have to do it every time, but challenge yourself maybe one meeting out of the week. You say, I'm going to find something that I'm going to share either at the beginning of the meeting or I'm going to ask a question or whatever. And you're going to do that. You're going to hold yourself accountable for that. And then you build up from there. So I definitely don't want this to seem like you have to change. You have to change to be accepted, but we're constantly improving on ourselves. And we heard about the positives with the ambivert, with being an ambivert, being a chameleon, right? And being able to change up as needed. So that would be my challenge. But that's really, so here's the thing with that though. One busy mama. Um, I don't like that they would give a position to, some new hires instead of you. I would really question why. Like, what was their thinking? Why? Like, what did these other people have that I did not have? Right? Because I think sometimes people are looked over because people think that you're dependable, you're stable, which are actually qualities of introverts. Introverts are typically very loyal, they are dependable. People see them as being there. They're always going to be there. And where that comes in as kind of a negative, I guess, in the workplace is that you want to show that you could leave in any minute. I have options. You guys hear me talking about this a lot on my channel. Options are everything. If you demonstrate that, oh, I'm going to this networking event, or, oh, I'm doing this business, luncheon with this whatever company, showing ways that you could leave if you want to, right? I think that's important because when your employer or when management sees, oh, this person is doing great work. One busy mama is doing great work. And she's constantly networking, she's constantly posting, she's constantly on LinkedIn, or she's, making new friends with this person, our competitor, whatever. Um, that puts in mind of like, what can we do to get her to stay? How can we retain this person? So sometimes I do feel like when you're kind of in that bucket where people think you won't go anywhere and you're dependable, you'll always be here, that is some of the negative of that. Just my thought, just my perspective is from working in HR and kind of seeing that play out. Yeah. So one busy mama is saying, a little annoying to me since in experience I have more to offer. However, it is fine. I need to look for a different position. Oh, well, you are in the right place, one busy mama. You're in the right place if you're looking for a new position. And I have a question for you if you're still in here. What is your line of work? What's your industry in? Oh, hello. I see some folks have joined. You're crunching the numbers. I think I just missed a few comments. One moment. Oh, yeah, I missed a lot of comments. I'm so sorry. Let's see here. Hey, Kamira. Right, Command B. I figured it out. I did figure it out. Took me a few seconds, but I did figure it out. Um, Cassandra says, I'm a pretty calm person myself, but once I have hit my tolerance level, I am like a tea kettle at that point. Okay, Cassandra, I feel you. I feel you. Everyone has their levels, right? Some people blow up at the, littlest thing all the time, which I don't think is too good, but at least they're getting out, their frustration. And then others, they are calm, like, myself, like Cassandra, and, things kind of bottle up. And then once it's bottled up, it's like, poof, we're gone and we got to get all that stuff out. I think it's very healthy, though, to express how you feel. I do. We have to. We have to get things out. Have to get things off our chest. The wordsmith says, you know how Black families talk after you express yourself. Finally, Jessica got a little attitude and went off on me. Now she's trying to play nice. Oh, right, exactly, exactly. No, it was funny because my mom knew about it too and was like, "Oh my gosh, but she knows about me. She knows how I can go off, on occasion. So this person just didn't know. They had no idea. One busy mama. Yeah, IDK at work. I feel less than most of the time. That is something I need to just change jobs. LOL. I like working from home and need something else. So, okay, I will challenge that a little bit, one busy mama. So you're feeling less than most of the time. You're probably in a place where you're feeling stagnant. Like if you've been in that same job for 7 years and you're not seeing the growth potential, then yes, I would say it might be good for you to just have a change. But I would also offer this. There may be a way. I would want you to identify the whys, because a lot of people will say, it's just time for you to move to another job. And a new job isn't always the right thing to do, but changing to a new job can always offer some positives. You're going to get new skills, you're going to typically get a pay increase, you're going to find new challenges and things like that. So, lots of positives. But I would say for you, definitely find those things that you want to take with you into that new job. What are the things you want to do? What are the things you want to change? Test it out your current work environment. These are some of the goals I want to do. This is what I want to have in my new job. Definitely kind of vet out the new job opportunities. Question, if you're not feeling the growth, ask them about the growth. If you're not feeling like the culture is right at your current workspace, really dig in and ask them about the culture at the new employers that you're, potentially looking at. So, and then also look internally, look at, okay, what type of traits do I want to bring to this new job? Because you get to start off fresh with a new company. So if you want to, bring in some more extroverted qualities at the new job, that's a great way to test it out and see what works for you. Hey, Mr. Wise, welcome in. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. The one busy mama saying, yeah, those are my feelings before, and especially, of course, heightened now. I do not have to go back to work in office space. Yeah, yeah, I can understand you. The wordsmith says, yeah, worried about leaving my food at my desk. Oh my goodness. I would never leave my lunch in the work fridge. Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that because yeah, other people touch your food and move it around. I even had an instance where somebody ate my lunch. They thought it was their lunch. I'm like, okay. And so they bought me lunch because I was like, I didn't even know about it. They told me. They were like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I ate your lunch. Like, what? How do you do that? Like, how do you eat somebody else's lunch? But the lady was fine. Like this was also a lady that I'll share this with you guys. This same lady in the office, I had a work colleague and friend, like we're still friends, even though I don't work at that original company. She came by my area, my department, because she worked in a different department. And sometimes she would come like in the evening, we would IM each other and say like, hey, you ready to go? Like it's time to go. It's like 5:30, it's time. So we would kind of push each other to leave the office instead of being there for like until 6 o'clock or something. And so we had these double doors. They were clear, you could see through them. And as she was approaching the doors, this same lady that ate my lunch, she goes, Jessica, she thinks this girl is me. And so when my friend gets to my office, she's like, "You know what just happened? This lady thought I was you." I'm like, "What?" And so she told me what happened, and she was like, "Yeah, she was about to say Jessica," and she was kind of looking. And here's the thing, though, guys, we look nothing alike. The only thing similar is that we both have dark hair that's typically curled. We literally got our hair done at the same hair salon. Um, and she's lighter skin with glasses. I'm darker skin with no glasses. Um, and a different facial structure, to be honest. So I was just like, that is beyond me. I just had to share that with you because that that just came top of mind. I thought it was funny. I was just like, but how? How? But so the wordsmith is saying, my cousin actually had someone putting drugs in her food at her call center job. I need to take a minute for that. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Like, wait a minute. I have never heard about that before. So someone tried to DMX your cousin? Because you guys know the story about DMX. It wasn't the food, but someone laced, something he was gonna smoke, right? He thought he was smoking marijuana, and they had laced it with some white substance that I won't say on here. But it's just a sad story. So you're telling me someone at the call center was putting drugs in her food? That's just scary. That's scary and disgusting. And how are they getting ugh, that is just disgusting. I need to know more details about that, the wordsmith. Is your cousin okay? And, like, is she doing okay? Tell me she's not still working at that same job. One busy mama says, "Yeah, oh, wow, there seems to be a lot more going on there." Exactly, there's way more going on there. Hi, Mike. Hi, just joined. I agree with one busy mama. I was about to say one black mama. I had to think about it for a second. I was in a similar situation. Those who speak up but do not know anything still get the job. It is how you get out of that introvert zone, how to start doing that. Thank you. Yes, you can. And again, taking small steps, share information online where you don't have to speak, and then move on to sharing information on the phone and meetings and things. Yes, you do have to break out. You do have to show more visibility. It's sad that you have to do that because extroverts typically they're not demanded to change so much except when they become leaders. 'Cause a lot of times they're rubbing people the wrong way, right? I mean, there are a lot of leaders that self-identify as extroverts, but are they always good leaders, right? And introverted leaders do tend to show some really nice traits. So do women leaders. Women make good leaders. But then when you look at leadership, a lot of extroverts, a lot of people that are not women, right? So it's very interesting. But yes, I challenge my introverted friends to, think a little bit more like the ambivert. Think about when you need to be an extrovert or show some extroverted qualities because we see the good in both. We see the extroverts networking, um, talking up, leading, being assertive, being confident. So some of those traits you can use. You don't have to be an extrovert all the time because that would be draining. If I had to, that gets into the conversation about code switching. It's very draining to, be something you're not. But if you can make an instance where you're like, okay, I'm going to be assertive in this situation, or I'm going to show a lot of confidence in this situation, or I'm going to talk up in this at this time, right? You can really designate it and plan ahead, which we know introverts are planners typically. Planners, thinkers, right? So you can plan when you need to be or show an extroverted trait, right? And again, this is a spectrum. So we're not talking about extremes here. The wordsmith says, I really have a problem with taking tests in order to get jobs. This is not an introverted issue, just an issue that I have with getting jobs. You know what is funny? As a recruiter, I also do not like tests. And actually, I have passed up on applying to jobs because they has a step in the application process had you or required you to take an assessment, and it just rubs me the wrong way. I'm like, "No, this is silly." I don't really understand them because here's the thing. Now, I'm fine with video interviewing. That's fine with me. I'd even be fine with answering a few questions, before the application. That is fine with me. But taking a personality assessment, for example, or some of those other assessments, it's just weird. I just don't see the value in it. So when I see some company asking that, I do not like it. Um, I get the why behind it. They want to get a sense of your personality, but I see that as that's being in a way biased. And most of the time, people when they're taking those assessments, they're not fully being true. They're going to answer those questions based on what they think the company needs, right? Like what they think the company wants you to answer, right? Just like with interviewing a lot of the time. With interviewing, there's some truth in what you're saying. Of course, you're being truthful, but you're also spinning it to put yourself in the best light. So yeah, I do not like taking tests in order to get jobs. Now, to get a job, typically you have to take a background check or drug screen, right, for certain companies. So I'm fine with that, of course. But in that assessment process, I will have to agree with you, the wordsmith. I don't love them. It, and again, I've skipped over on many jobs just because I'm like, no, I'm not taking an assessment. And that's just a part of my boundary. That's just a standard. I'm just like, no, I don't care. It would have had to be a really, really great opportunity for me to do an assessment. Mike is saying, hello. It's not like the others had more to offer, but they were very good with the manager and were good friends. Also, they go out to eat and do some things on weekends so they get the job. Hate this. Yes, you know what? And I talked about that a little bit earlier, Mike. And that's a challenge, I will say, for introverts. I don't say be the person that's like, kissing butt or going to every event, every work event, doing things on weekends. I don't agree with that. But I will say for work functions, for, meetings, go to lunch with a colleague if you prefer doing one-to-one things. Pick a few people in the organization and say, I want to do, a work lunch with you, or in the virtual setting, I want to do like a quick 15 coffee chat with you or something. People are pretty perceptive to, those type of things. So I would challenge you to pick a few times out of the month, and those little steps help. You make that time. People see that you're interested in them, right? You want to build a relationship with them, and it really can do wonders because let's say you have a meeting, you want to meet with your boss or someone in management, and you make it as you just want to connect with them, or maybe you like them to be your mentor in some way. And so you have these interactions, small interactions, not saying you have to go to these group events, right? But the next time someone's up for a promotion, you now have an advocate because you've been meeting with this person. You have them in their corner. And if they're in that leadership position, right, they're making a decision for someone getting promoted or getting an opportunity. Well, Mike, you're now going to be top of mind because you've been interacting with them at a personal level. You haven't been going to every event, and you don't necessarily need to. But just finding ways, baby steps, finding ways where you can engage with other people or more people at your company, because it's a great way to, one, genuinely meet other people, learn more about them, but then two, you find that you'll have more visibility and you build those advocates that you need. And you may find that, some people kind of come across, and this is something that's not so great with extroverts, come across as not being very deep. Like they just, make these kind of casual connections and they don't really care. But you may find that you have some things in common, or you may be able to learn from someone that's extrovert or someone that you didn't really like as much initially. I've done that in a past work experience and ended up finding value in meeting with this person that I was kind of like, I don't think I like them. And then I was like, you know what? I don't love them, but I get them. I get them, and I see how I can take away some of the things they did. And I actually implemented some things, and then I was promoted. You learn how to play the game. It's a game, right? You play the game in the office sometimes, but at the same time, you can make some genuine connections. All right, here. Let me see. I think I lost my space. Let's see. My voice is sounding a little bit better, guys. I'm very happy about that. So one busy mama. Okay, I see. So one busy mama said, well, I would tell you, they had asked me if I would be interested in 2019 for a senior lead position. I said no. Oh no, you said yes. I don't know why I said you said no. I said yes, so they switched me. So they asked you if you be interested in 2019 for a senior lead position. I said yes, so they switched you. So you did get the senior lead position. That's awesome. Good for you. So they were recognizing that you were, a great team member. I love that. So to a team needed who needed a lead, and then shortly after, someone from my old team also was moved over, and he got it. Oh, I see. So they got the job. Okay. I'm a nurse, but I work for insurance. Oh, interesting. Oh my gosh. Well, one busy mama, thank you so much. I appreciate nurses so much. I've done some nurse jobs shadowing in an earlier life because I thought that I might want to move into the nursing field. And then I was like, maybe I'll do that later in life. I don't know. But you guys, like nurses, so much homage to you and thank you for your work. Thank you for your service. I mean, we cannot function as a society without nurses. So thank you so much. Mike says, oh, wow, that happens so much. Agree. One busy mama was saying that is what they got chummy with the management in this world. It is who you know and not how much you know. Not to say they were not qualified. Mm-hmm. And that's why I tell my people that watch my channel, I'm always saying use LinkedIn to your advantage and always be networking because it is definitely more about who you know a lot of the time. Like to get you in the door sometimes, to even be able to show your ability or to kind of push you ahead of others, um, you might need to know someone. And so, yes, that can really be helpful. And, life is about relationships. So I don't want to spin in a negative light in any way or any form or fashion. But, building relationships is what everything is about. Sales, building relationships, right? These online platforms, YouTube, building relationships. Like I've connected with so many great people on YouTube and continuing to do so. So it's really about the relationship and also being not one sided. So you're offering and you're receiving. So if you're in a relationship where you're not getting anything out of it or you're getting everything out of it, I would say question that and see how you can put more balance into those type of relationships. Mike said, I totally agree. My wife is in a similar issue as well. There is no way to get in the group. You know what I mean? Even if your manager is fine with you, they're just playing with you being nice. I think there are ways to get into inner circles. And I think it's more about identifying the who you can connect with. There's always someone in, say, a group or an inner circle that is a little bit more inviting, right? Someone that you connect with, someone that in passing, you would kind of go to the lunch or kitchen area, or you pass their office and they were a little more inviting. They would say hi to you, they would ask you questions. There's typically that someone. So, my suggestion would be that is who you need to connect with first. Once you're connected with that person, it kind of feels like high school. I feel like this is Mean Girls, right? I love that movie. But once you're connected with that person, they will be the one to invite you into that circle. Others will see that you're connecting with them. You're being well liked. They will invite you into that circle. And that's how you get in. That's how you get the advocates you need. Because let's talk about it. There's definitely workplace politics that happens. And you have to show yourself friendly to make work friends. You have to put yourself out there a bit to be included more, especially in these work environments that don't really push for inclusion, don't really do events and things to help employees become more included. You have to take that initiative yourself and say, who am I going to connect with? And here's the thing, if it's a bad experience, it was a bad experience. What's the worst that can happen? The person turns down your meeting invite or they don't want to connect with you, which I don't think is likely. I think most people will do that because it's like saving face. It's like, it's the right thing to do in a workplace. How would it look if someone invited me? I don't think I've ever turned down someone that was like, hey, I just want to connect with you. From an intern to someone just had 1 year experience to whatever, I just been like, yeah, sure. Put the time on my calendar. Let's talk. Even folks on LinkedIn, I am always like, yeah, let's talk. Unless I don't see your message for a while, then I'll come back to you. But no, yeah, let's talk. Why would I not? So that's one way that you can get around that. But yes, I think we can all relate to that, not being in the in crowd. And how do you break that mold? How do you get in, right? One busy mama says it's really tough because they like who they like, and it seems like I just sit back and keep chugging along. That's not good. Yeah, I do agree with you on busy mama. You may need to find a different space, a different workplace, right? Or even a different team. Sometimes it's not even about the company. You may like the company, but maybe your department just doesn't have a lot of change going on, right? And so you have to find ways. Maybe it's moving to another department, right? Maybe it is. You don't know. We don't know. So, let me see here. I was checking a package. I'm expecting a package here soon, and I have to sign for it, so I'm checking for that. So Mike said the new thing is having 200 plus LinkedIn connects to get you a job. That's just crazy. Who you know is correct, which is same, even though you have so much. Oh my gosh, guys, you know what? Let me see. I like have thousands of people I'm connected to on LinkedIn, but I would say even more than that, really being connected, like really being connected to folks is important. Let me see if I can get on LinkedIn. It just sent me a notification. But yeah, I have a lot of people I'm connected to technically on LinkedIn, but less people that I've built, solid relationships with. I could say probably 100 people I have some sort of relationship with on my LinkedIn. We're connected, maybe even more than that. But yeah, I would agree. You need to be connected because, when you look at these companies, how do you get past 500 people applying to the same job? Well, a big way to do that is if you know someone at the company and they refer you. That's networking, right? Or how do you, again, get the promotion? You have to network internally within your teams. You have to get those advocates on your team that can speak up for you in those meetings where you're not present, right? One busy mama says I've tried LinkedIn too. Yeah, I think, LinkedIn, I would say LinkedIn is good, but you have to have real connections. I wouldn't say look at it as I have to make 200 connections. I'm just going to connect with everyone. Look at it as, I have a connection with someone. It may not be a really solid connection, but I'm going to connect with them on LinkedIn as a way to engage with them, to kind of follow what they're doing, to post. So you should be engaging. You should be posting things on LinkedIn. You should be engaging with other people's comments. You should be messaging other people, finding ways to get off of LinkedIn. So actually having a phone conversation with folks, things like that to really engage. I don't think LinkedIn is the end all be all. Jessica, you do know I was making a joke about Command B because you were looking for it. Yes, I did see that. Um, yes. One busy mama, how do you eat someone else's? Or I think I got the joke. I don't know. Maybe I didn't get the joke. I thought you were just putting it in there for me because I was like, wait, Command B. Well, no, I don't get that joke. What are you joking about? I don't know if I understand that. What is Command B? What is that about? I got to see if I see the comment. Was that like something to do with the military? Otherwise, I don't know. One busy mama, how do you eat someone else's lunch? I think she forgot hers and ate someone else's. Uh-huh. Right. Yes, people do that. People forget their lunch and they'll just go in there. People use other people's like condiments, drinks. If you have coffee and like that's it's just weird. I never would I just I mean, even with the potlucks at work, I don't know if any of you guys feel the same way, but I've never been a fan of the whole potluck unless we're ordering food from a restaurant and, then we're eating all together. I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." Or everything is store bought. Like, everyone bought, like, desserts or fruit platter or veggie platter, and that's always what I would bring to potlucks. I never really cooked. I would be like, "I'm gonna bring that fruit tray," or, "I'm gonna bring a dessert." Like, I'm not cooking, no, and I don't plan on eating other people's cooking unless I know them. Like, if it was a person I knew, I might try their stuff, but most of the time, I'm just like, nope. And then, certain people, not nothing against cats, but certain people have their cats all in the kitchen, and I've just seen too many things. I'm just like, nah, we're good. We're not doing that. Hey, Relax with Nature's Beauty. Thank you for dropping in to say hello. Nice to see you. But yeah, one busy mama eating somebody's, just what? Eating somebody's food. I just don't understand that. But yeah, people be forgetting their lunch. Let me see here. Me too, trying to get more connections and just start chatting with folks, but keep it open and no personal comment. See, this trend is getting selected by a recruiter. You can reach out to computers, Mike, or computers, recruiters. Goodness. You can reach out to recruiters, but I think you have to do it in a very smart way. You should be not, so this is what I see people do wrong when it comes to making LinkedIn connections. They will reach out and say, "Hey, I see you're a recruiter at, I don't know, Apple. I just applied to a job there. Can you look at my resume?" Like, no, that is not how you approach the person. You approach the person with saying, "Hi, I see you are a recruiter at Apple. I'd like to add you to my connection." Or you could even say something like, "I hope your day is going well," or something interesting about them. Like, push it on them and say, you like to reach out to them or connect with them. And then if they respond to that message, then engage with them a little bit further. So you may ask them, as they are a recruiter, you may ask them, I've been looking at Apple for a long time. It's a great company to work at. Would you have any tips on this type of opportunity? Or are there openings with this type of, skill set? You can ask that after you've made that introduction and, you've seen how receptive they are. A lot of times recruiters may even say, a lot of times we're going to look at your profile. That's why I say have a fully complete profile that sells yourself and your skills. And let's say I look at your profile, I'm like, oh, Mike has a great background. Well, then I would then say, hey, let me know if you have any questions about Apple, or something of that matter. And then you can go, oh, thank you so much for being open to questions. I actually do have a few questions if you'd be open to chatting or just giving your quick question about a specific job or something. And that's how you really build that engagement with recruiters. Because you do have to think with recruiters, we're on LinkedIn a lot, we're getting a lot of messages, we're sending a lot of messages. So, keep things short, sweet, and simple, but definitely show that you're interested in them. Have you seen Road Trip movie? Never send food back in the restaurant. LOL. Oh my goodness. Yes, I actually don't do that. I don't send food back in restaurants. If anything, so recently I went to this spot nearby me. It's like maybe 15 minutes away from me yesterday, and I didn't love the food. What the waiter did, he actually took off two of the items and I just paid for one thing. But yeah, I'm pretty vocal. I was like, well, I don't like those. I had gotten some hash brown. It was like breakfast food. I was like, I don't like this. And he was like, okay, I got you. And he had asked me because I got in this, it was interesting. It was like a French toast with granola on it. It was like, it was very interesting. And I was just like, this is not what I had in mind. And so he asked me if wanted to have it remade. And I was just like, no, it's cool. It's not bad or anything, and plus I wanted to try it. So he just comped me for the two items that I had. Um, so yeah, it was fine. But yes, I have seen Road Trip. That movie is absolutely wild. That is so crazy. I heard that weed is laced with other drugs nowadays. I've heard that too, Zero. That is so sad. Like I feel for people today, but I mean DMX, he was 14 and there was a person that he knew. It was like his mentor. It's just so sad that he struggled with that all his life based on one person's actions to a kid. I just don't understand this world. Like, how do you treat, here's my thing. Would you put drugs in a dog's food? Why would you do that to a human? I just don't understand how humans interact with each other. Humans, we interact with each other in a way that's probably worse than being animalistic because at least when you look at the animal kingdom, there's typically a reason an animal is fighting another animal or an animal is eating another animal. It's because sustenance, they need food. right? And that is you are their food, or that thing is the food. Like if you would think of a snake attacking a lizard. I say this because I just saw a video of it. Please don't judge me. But it's because they need food. Otherwise, they're just not going around attacking other creatures, typically. We don't see this in nature. But with humans, it's very interesting to me how we are evolved, but we're not. Cassandra says, ate your lunch, then told you. That's funny. Exactly. Like, you don't eat my lunch, and then, because I didn't even realize, like, because I had that in there, and I actually went out to eat. I went out to eat. I would go out to eat like on occasion, maybe once or twice a week. And I would go out to eat a lot of times with either people in my department or people in another department. Like I said, I'm pretty social. I like to meet with different people. And, yeah, she told me at the end of the day, she was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." It wasn't even lunchtime when she told me, "I'm so sorry I ate your lunch, but, I'm gonna replace it," and da da. I'm just like, "Oh my goodness." It was just funny to me. I was just like, "Well, I didn't eat it anyway, so you're good." The wordsmith says this guy was doing it to a lot of people and burned his fingerprints off. What? Oh, that's crazy. What do you even get out of doing that? Like, what is the satisfaction of doing that? Yes, she is okay. No, LOL, she quit years ago. Oh, that's good. Okay. He was fired and arrested. Background checks are needed. Oh my good. Yes, yes, and yes. Background checks are definitely important. But there is a cost to doing background screens, right? So I get some companies aren't able to take on that cost. But yes, some type of background check. I would put background check over reference check. I don't really care so much about reference checks because, I mean, when you give a reference, you're not most people, because I have had one person where they gave a reference that was like, and the person didn't have good things to say. And it's just like, did you talk to this person beforehand? Um, or are they trying to get back at you for something? What's up with that? But yeah, most of the time you're going to use a reference that's going to talk well about you, someone that liked you. So what's the point in that? But a background screen is going to check into you. So I get that. And I know there's some differences, different things that are happening with criminal checks and stuff, but it's important. We got to protect our people, right? That's so sad. I'm so sorry that your sister went through that. Drugs and food while at work. Yeah, that should be jail time for whoever did that. Yes, for sure. That's just beyond me. I don't even understand that. So one busy mama saying, OMG, OMG, he's a compulsive offender. Too, that's criminal behavior. Right. Imagine he or she could be linked to some other crimes out there. Mm-hmm. Right. It's like, well, what else are you doing? Right? What else have you done? Goodness gracious. Mike said, Jessica, you too for this chat. Oh, thank you. I don't know what's going on with me. You guys know I'm not feeling so well, but how I'm reading these comments, I'm like, what in the world? So Jessica, thank you for this chat. Love it. If you and I don't know what that stands for, and be outspoken, then you can be the manager or lead. I know what you're saying now. Okay. I get that's their job to lead, but they do not need to be biased, but they are. Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, with leadership, there's definitely, well, here's the thing too. In general, there's definitely favorites. It's natural for us to like certain people or connect with certain people over others. A lot of times it's because, we identify a likeness to certain people, right? This person is just like me, or they reminds me of this person, or they remind me of someone that I like, right? So that bias definitely is in there. And then two, the whole, well, I'll say some people are just likable. So they're definitely just charismatic people in the world. I think about Barack Obama. You may not like his policies, you may like his policies, but he was a very charismatic guy. I mean, especially when you compare to like Biden, it's just like, the personality, it was just there. So you just want to like them, right? And then other people just aren't as charismatic for whatever the reason. And then there's things like attractiveness that play into part as well. But yeah, leaders do have a responsibility, though, to step away from that bias. One moment. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I think for leaders, they need to focus on really finding ways to interact with all of their people, not just honing in on the folks that make the effort or they're the most likable ones or the ones they typically go to. One other thing I will say is when you're needed by a leader, you're going to be the one they go to more often, and you're probably going to build a relationship with them because of that. Like if you're an expert at this one thing or you have more knowledge than them on one or two things or whatever, and they're always coming to you, you can take those instances to not just share the information with them, but to also talk with them and build those relationships. So that's another thing to keep in mind. One busy mama says, OMG, yes, background checks for sure. Felony for drugging and kidnapping. Wow, exactly. Like, what in the world? Background checks, background checks. Now, I will say, most larger companies will do background checks for sure, in most cases. Let me see here. I'm missing some stuff. 1 BM. One busy mama. Thanks. We agree quite a bit. Yeah, you guys are on it. Thank you, Jessica. Tries a bit more. Perfect. Hey, Latanya, you still in here? Hey. No, I didn't get the position. See, that's annoying. That is so annoying. So, I mean, once you don't get a position, a lot of times people do leave a company when they're passed over for a position. That's very natural. I understand the feeling because you feel slighted, right? You feel like, you know, I'm doing this work. I've been here. I have the experience. Why not? So sometimes you do, and I've even seen people leave a company then come back. Like, it's that kind of old age thinking, or saying where you don't know what you have until it's gone, right? So sometimes you do leave and you come back and then, the company ends up paying you more money or giving you a better position or whatever to get you back. So yeah, sometimes it happens. There's always something better out there. Yes, Mike, I'm so glad you offered that. There is always something better. You just got to jump out there, step out on faith and, do it. But, obviously carefully, assess. You definitely don't want to be put in a position that is worse. Just, take your time, but, definitely kind of set a goal for yourself and, look for that next opportunity and make some actions, network and do what you need to do to find the next great opportunity for you. I'm sure you'll find something great. And definitely use my channel. Like I share different things. Like if you're in an interview process, I share different content or just send me a question. I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on IG. So if you have a question, just send me a quick note. Doesn't have to be a drawn out video or anything. We can definitely talk about it. And I do also offer consultations for interview prep and also resume reviews. Well, actually resume writing. So I will review your resume and then we'll go over what I want to change, and then we'll move forward with me making those changes. Mike, what does your wife do? What if you don't want to make work friends? You're gonna have a hard time, Zero. Hard time. I mean, even if they're not like your day-to-day friends, right? But someone you engage with at work, you should definitely have them. But Zero, you're gonna have a hard time in the workplace if you don't want to make work friends. Because again, it's all about relationships. Think about it. You're working with people 8 hours, and that's on the, short end, right? Typically 8, 9, maybe 10 hours of the day, you're engaging with your work colleagues in some way, Monday through Friday. And, for other jobs, maybe it's Thursday through Sunday or whatever. But you're spending a significant amount of time with people you work with. So I would hope that you're in a place where you like at least some of the people that you work with, if not most of the people that you work with. And, if not, I would say again, if you're not liking the people that you're working with, like at a basic level, that's not good. I would say you may want to look at, finding another job or another role, another team or something, because you got to make some friends at work. It's going to be hard for you if you don't have friends or, associates, people that, have can advocate for you. Again, you have to have your advocates in the workplace. The in crowd ain't all that it's cracked up to be. Oh, that's funny. Oh, hi, Triumphant Tiff. Welcome in. Nice to see you. So this is a great live. I'm naturally outgoing and friendly. It carried me far in my career, and I try to help my introverted friends. There we go. So you're the extrovert that we were missing earlier. So we were talking about that spectrum. So my question for you, Tiff, is: do you find that there are things that you have seen that you have to work on or adjust in the workplace because you are extroverted? Because when we started out, we talked about, the great traits about extroverts. They're good at networking, they're outgoing, they're good at working across teams, they talk up, they like to lead, they can be assertive and confident, all these great things. But then some of the things that that were not so positive about extroverts, right? Were that they're seen as not great listeners, they speak before fully understanding sometimes. They're not as analytical. They don't take as much time to think things through. And then the other one was that they can be seen as controlling or aggressive, and sometimes their decisions aren't fully made on the data or information. Sometimes it can be more emotional, like, I'm happy, I feel like I need to do this right now, I'm doing it. So, so those are some of the things, but that's awesome. I'm so glad we got an extrovert in the house. Triumphant Tiff, work isn't just about strictly work product. It's about team environment. Yes, and culture as well. Many people miss the mark on those things because they don't engage or feel authentic chatting with other people. There we go. Yes. And so thinking about Zero's comment, if you don't like the people you work with, it's gonna be really hard for you because it's about those relationships. Like how are you going to, and I would even think about IT team. So typically, IT people think introvert, right? But if you think about we have to create this website. Well, IT professionals have to engage with maybe marketing, designers. They have to work with different folks within IT, compliance, the client. So if they're building a website for maybe me, the HR team, they've got to work with the HR folks. They're building it for the finance team, they got to work with them. Or if it's an external client. So yes, you definitely have to be able to engage with other people, and when you don't have that culture, you don't have that feeling of a team environment, it's really tough to do that. And definitely true. Mike said, saw your other video on ATS, applicant tracking system. How to get HR to pick up your resume. Do HR recruiters go every morning and search LinkedIn for their positions? I do tailor my resume to the position. Oh, yeah. So, so I will say recruiters typically on Monday morning, what we're doing is we're looking at our ATS system. We're looking at who applied to our job. Typically, we get more traction over weekend, especially, and this is why I say, apply during that first week, first couple days, or at least by the second week, because that's when we're really heavily looking at our applicants. And typically on that Monday morning, we're anxious to see like who applied to the job. Did we get traction? Did, things we do from a branding perspective, did sharing it out on LinkedIn, did making an Indeed post or Glassdoor post, or sending out to different connections, or, reaching out to different people on Thursday and Friday, did they actually apply? That is what we're doing on that Monday morning. And yes, we are checking that applicant tracking system regularly to see who applied. Now, with LinkedIn, most positions, now depending on the demand of the position, if it's a very easy position to fill, like an administrative assistant, I'm probably not going to be searching too much on LinkedIn. But I may search on LinkedIn because I want someone with maybe a niche skill set. I've had administrative positions where I've searched on LinkedIn and I actually filled a position. I remembering with someone that I found on LinkedIn. I reached out to them and told them about the job, and they got the job. So, yes, we do typically use LinkedIn for a lot of positions. I would say we use LinkedIn over Indeed. Some recruiters do use Indeed. Some recruiters, depending on the job, if it's a tech job, maybe using Dice or GitHub or some other formats. If it's a creative job, we might even be looking at Behance, which is a creative site where you can post your resume and different work out there. But a lot of times we're going into LinkedIn because it offers so much. It's easy to use. We have different packages for recruiters that makes it easy for us to find people and do Boolean searches and things. So yes, we do use LinkedIn. That's why I always say, like, again, on my channel, I am trying to help people, get jobs, get more income, get a side hustle, really whatever, like whatever improves your life. That's what I'm about. And a lot of times I'm sharing information in the workspace and, getting jobs because that's my bread and butter. But I say get out there on LinkedIn because if I'm doing a search for someone and you're not on LinkedIn, you're missed or your LinkedIn isn't completely filled out completely, like you don't have the information that I'm looking for on there, you're not going to pop up in my search. So fill up your LinkedIn, provide the information. It should be similar to your resume plus more. Like you should be able to really highlight yourself, brand yourself. And if you have a business folks are on LinkedIn too. They are like, I know a couple of people that are doing it big on LinkedIn, branding and selling their products too. So you can really make a voice on LinkedIn. Not that this is a LinkedIn advertisement. I'm not sponsored by LinkedIn, but I definitely want people to know about it because there's too many people I come across that say they're looking for a job, but they don't have a LinkedIn profile and they're in a professional space. It's not like they're, a mechanic, a car mechanic, and for a car mechanic, I'm not really going to look on LinkedIn. I'm going to try to use alternate means because they're not typically there. But accountants, marketers, IT folks, HR folks, customer service folks, help desk folks, all of that needs to be on LinkedIn for sure. Zero said you were trying to share my link earlier on your computer and you couldn't find the right command. At first you said, oh, it's Command B. Oh, okay. I got you, Zero. Zero the infinite. That's how my husband feels. He doesn't like work friends, but I encourage him to make at least one or two that don't annoy him. Exactly. You just need an advocate. You gotta have advocates. Just think about it. Like if something's going down, you need a work friend. And typically having a work friend also makes the work life a little better. It literally makes working a lot better because you spend a lot of time at work. You gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta make some friends. Thank you for the tip on recruiting. Yes, of course. Yes, drugs are drug. Yeah, that is crazy. They lace them all the time. Can't trust many. Just stay away from it. Just please, guys, just stay away from this stuff because it's just This world today is just too much. It's too much stuff going on. That the story with DMX, the story about um, the person putting the drugs in the lunch. That's just sad. I don't see much of a point making work friends at Triumph and Tip. One, they are not your real friends and will act like they don't know you when you leave. And two, I don't need any frenemies. Oh my goodness, Zero. Well, I think in your line of work though, like if you're working in restaurants, um, depending on your job, maybe you don't want as many work friends, but I would challenge you to make one work friend, just one, just one person. Because let's say something goes down and, you don't have any work friends that can vouch for you about something. You definitely want someone that can vouch for you in any space that you're at. Like that's why like if you go into an event, you typically want to take a friend. You go out to a club, you typically want to take a friend. Just, again, kind of having someone to vouch for you. And again, it does make work more enjoyable from my perspective and what I've seen. There are actually studies that show that people that have at least one work friend typically have a better, what is it? They're typically better retained. Like they'll stay at the company longer and they typically have a better work life. Oh my goodness. If someone gonna take my lunch many times, then they're gonna get a surprise. Mike says zero agree. No matter if you're good at work, friends at work, but you don't socialize with them 24/7 and you don't get the next job. I don't say you have to socialize with them 24/7, but you should be having someone that you can engage with on a, regular, not 24/7. And Triumphant Tip says, "You def sound like my husband. I hear you. I don't see it as friends, but associates that you may know a little more than the rest of the coworkers." Exactly. So, like, let's say you have a question about someone. Who's the person that you go to? Or, if you want to get an idea, you want to run an idea by someone before you share it with the rest of the group, which I think can be really good for introverts. I've done this myself. um, this will be the person you go to. Hey, I want to get your perspective on something. Someone that you can trust, ish. Obviously, you can't really put a lot of trust in anybody, but someone that you can, generally trust to give you some advice. So it's not like you have to be buddy buddy with them all the time or spend a lot of time with them or spend time with them outside of work, but just someone that you get along with fairly well and that you can go to. Zero, the benefits come in from being seen as approachable, contributing to work environment, culture. It doesn't have to be friendship. Right, exactly, exactly. We had 5 people leave for that same reason. They did not get to the position either. Some of them, ooh, they had their master's degrees. Yeah, because other people will pick up, if they're not, look, if you're not being watered somewhere, hey, if I'm a flower, I guess I'm gonna have to move to somewhere else. If I'm not getting sun in this space, I gotta move over somewhere else. That's a bad analogy. I'll say this: I'm looking at my plant right now, one of my plants, and if it's not getting sun, one spot, I gotta move it to another spot, right? If I'm not giving it enough water, it's gonna die, right? So you have to make sure that if you're not getting everything you need, or at least most of the things you need, because no workplace is gonna be perfect. But those things that you must have in a workplace, when you stop having those, you need to start looking. And I actually had a really good mentor and friend tell me like years ago, always, 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 always be interviewing, always be networking. Like you always need to have options. And you need to be interviewing so you understand the market, you understand what skills are needed. You need to be interviewing regularly so that you can stay up on your interviewing skills because these are skills that you have to maintain, right? I don't know about you if you've ever interviewed after not interviewing for a while, you feel it. You feel a little rusty sometimes. You're like, oh, I haven't talked about myself in a minute. And then the other thing is just the fact that you may find some great opportunity come your way. Or on the instance where you're like, hey, this place isn't treating me right. Well, now you have options because you've interviewed at multiple places, or you have a recruiter contact. You can say, hey, do you have anything for me? I think I'm ready to leave soon. Or I'm ready to, make my next um, take on my next challenge or whatever, however you want to put it, right? Zero said, it's not to say that I haven't had work friends that actually became real friends, but I didn't go looking for them. I'm a real good judge of character most of the time. Yeah, I definitely don't say join a company or join a job because you want to make friends. It's not about making friends, but while you are going to be working, definitely take the effort to make a friend or two for sure. Don't care about none of that. I'm here to make my money and go home. See, that's the challenging thing. So I had that mentality. Let me go back here. Zero, I had that mentality when I first started working as a recruiter. And I learned that that's not how you do it. I thought of the job as okay, I'm doing a good job. I'm doing my work. I'm going to work and then I'm going to go home. I don't really have to engage too much with other people, right? In the office. And so, I did that for probably about a year until I started realizing this is not working. I was passed up for a promotion. And I started reaching out at that point and really learning that I had to make advocates. So when I share these things with you, I am talking from things I've seen in others, but also personal experience. That is when I got the better projects. That's when I got the promotions. That's when I got pay increase. That's when I got the new job. That's when I get a different job, better pay. Like more things came my way because I started putting myself out there, had this mentality, always be interviewing, right? Always be, connecting with people inside of your organization and outside of your organization. You have to push yourself a little bit. I know it's easy to stay in your comfort zone. It's very easy to stay in a comfort zone, especially now. Like we got our comfort zone, we're working from home, we're like, we're good. But I would challenge you to step out of your comfort zone and do something that you wouldn't normally do. Just try it. If it doesn't work, the worst thing is what? It didn't work. It didn't work. Now you know. Now you've learned, right? So Triumphant Tiff says, I found socializing easily with others plus skills displays leadership management qualities. Why pick a leader that shows a general distrust and dislike for their team? Great point, Tiff. Great point. Yes. How are you going to be a leader if you can't get along with people? You don't want to make work friends, right? And you know what? Zero may not have that aspiration to be a leader, And some people don't want to lead, and I get it. Some people don't want to manage people. I get it because that's a whole set of headaches, right? Whole another problem, pick your struggle. But you may be leading a project. People may not pick you to lead a project because even with that, you have to work with other people. You have to delegate to other people. You have to check in with other people. You have to, generally trust people to do their job. Follow up with them, offer yourself as a resource, engage with them. So it's very important. Traffic says, I hear you, Zero. We all have to do what's best for us and fulfills our needs. Yeah. Oh, good. One busy mama. Thanks for sending me a connection. I will definitely accept. Zero the Infinite says, I barely have to engage people at work and only have to work with one person. I'm doing well where I work at. We focus on a job and almost completely independent. So, I mean, if that works for you, Zero, it works for you. But I will say, as you begin making more money and as you begin moving into roles that require more from you, you may find that you will have to pull from some of your extroverted qualities, right? That's just my 2 cents there. I will say that will be more important as you kind of, I don't want to say, I guess, move up the ladder or just kind of improve. I think you're constantly making improvements, right? So that's just something to consider. Trevor Tiff is saying, I try to adapt to my environment based on needs of the environment, not just my personal preferences. So I've had to amp it up or tone it down, LOL, based on industry and position. You know what, Trevor Tiff, now that you're saying that, I wonder if you're not in the space of an ambivert with extrovert functions. Because that sounds like, we talked about the ambivert being that person that can adapt, be an introvert or be more introverted when they need to, be more extroverted when they need to, depending on the situation, the people, or even the mood of, their mood. They can flex, they can be adaptable, they can find that balance between these two extremes, which are extrovert and introvert. So I do wonder if you are in fact an ambivert, which we've learned Cassandra is, and also, that is kind of more of the ideal person that people find in the workplace. Zero the Infinite says, it's not necessary to create relationships where I'm at. If I vibe with someone, then I might decide to talk to that person, but I couldn't care less. Okay, Zero. Well, I'm going to move on. I've shared my 2 cents. Building relationship may apply to all, but not for all of them. Okay. Triumphant Tiff says, I've been a business owner for a few years, so no more office politics, but natural charisma is helpful as a bonus to skills in my field, healthcare. Oh, yes. People that are charismatic, yes. Like, have you ever talked to someone and they're selling you on something and you don't even know you're being sold to? They're that smooth, like they're that charismatic, or you just find yourself talking to someone and you just want to talk with them or you want to listen to them. Definitely, I've definitely seen that. And then we've definitely seen the opposite of that. Like there are definitely people I've come across and it's just like, I cannot wait to get away from you or you're making me feel awkward. This is weird. So it's definitely depending on the person and their energy. I'm a big believer in energy. And so, when you do find yourself, as Triumphant Tiff was saying, you should have that ability to be a little bit flexible, to read the room, to observe. So if you're in a room with more introverted folks, or your client is an introvert, coming from the business standpoint, you might have to tone it down a bit, as she mentioned. And then for Triumph and Tiff, if you're in a room full of extroverts, you're playing off of each other extroversion, right? So you may amp it up, a notch. So yeah, I get that. If I can make work friends if I want, but I just choose not to. Okay. Okay, gotcha, Zero. So, Zero to Infinite, my husband is in immunology research. Ah, okay. Probably not very important. It also says relationships are not very important to his field. I think in tech science positions that are not public facing, I definitely agree with you. So, I think some science positions for sure. But then I do question, here's the thing, because we automatically think tech, science, you don't need to be, you can just be introverted, right? But here's when it does come in handy, are those times when you need to have a conversation about negotiating your pay, because introverts tend to shy away from certain conversations, whereas extroverts are a lot more confident and they're assertive in having those conversations, right? So an introvert may not get as big of a pay raise or may not get a pay raise, whereas an extrovert, because they're able to be more confident in their conversation, right? They're able to really talk up their skills, right? Introverts are typically more humble, and they're able to really assert themselves. They may get that pay increase, or they may get that promotion. Or on the other end that we talked about, being visible, because, oh, I didn't even think about this. This is a real scenario I had where we're looking for a candidate, and the perfect match was actually on this person's team, and they didn't even think about them. The person said, they were going to apply, whatever they applied. I bring the person up and said, hey, they applied. And they're like, oh, they did? They applied? Oh, I didn't even know they would have been interested in this. And like, oh, you know what? They're actually a perfect match for this role. They have all the skills needed. Yeah, this person, yeah, they would be good for this role. And it's like, how did you not know this person? Like, I literally asked you, is there anyone on your team that would be a match? Like, is there anyone that you would see applying for the role? And they're like, nope, 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 nope. We need to look for it externally. But under their nose was someone that fit the criteria. So my question is, and I do have my perspective knowing a little bit about this person, they should have been more visible, like, or maybe if they were more visible and if that leader had taken more time to, maybe do those one-to-ones and really understand if the person had an interest beforehand, that could have solved that issue. But then also I put a little onus on the person that, it's like, how manager not know that you had this interest? How did your manager not think about you? Well, in a lot of cases, it's because they're to themselves, they're doing their work, they're doing good work, and they go unnoticed, almost like invisible. We had that conversation of being dependable. They've got it, they're doing it. They don't have to worry about them, right? So yeah, you have to think about it that way. So I would challenge my introverted folks, you think that you don't have to make friends, you don't have to build relationships, you don't have to step out of your comfort zone. But in most cases, you do need to. You don't have to, but it can help you to get a better opportunity. And so that's what I want to share. You guys know I am I'm going to tell you my truth, right? I'm going to tell you things that maybe you don't like. Maybe you don't like LinkedIn. You don't want to get on LinkedIn, but I'm still going to tell you, hey, you need to get on LinkedIn. So in this instance, I'm going to tell you, you may need to, take on some different traits. Try it. Again, take baby steps. Take baby steps. Hey, T. Jones, welcome in. Nice to see you. How are you today? Zero says, I have natural charisma. I can turn it on or off. Okay. Tribe and Tiff says, wow, Jessica, I might be an ambivert. Hey, ambivert team. I try to be flexible. It's helped me a lot, not just in business, but in life. I don't swim against the stream if I don't have to. There we go. I was thinking it. I was thinking you might be an ambivert. And I think more conversation needs to be had about the fact that the extrovert introvert that people have been talking about for a long time is not really true. Most people are not a true extrovert or introvert. A lot of times we fall in the middle once we've developed. Now, I made this point earlier with kids. Yes, with kids, you will see one kid will be an extrovert for sure, and the other kid will be an introvert for sure. But as they grow and develop, you find yourself in the middle. So you find yourself as kind of this ambivert with extrovert tendencies or introvert tendencies or traits, right? But I think that's a great balance. All that says is that you've learned, you've adapted, you've changed. You are able to be this adaptable person that does really well, to your point, Trav and Tiffany, or Tiff, in the workplace, right? So you can be that balanced person, and that's okay. That's a good thing. One busy mom says, okay, gotta go. This has been great. Love all the discussion for sure. Have a great day. Thank you for coming in. You provided a great discussion. And Triumphant Tiff says, OMG, my husband is awful at negotiation. LOL. See, and that's where these things come to play that I don't think a lot of people think about, because there will be a time you may not think about it. There is a time that you may not have to negotiate, but you will want to negotiate, or it will be for the betterment of you to negotiate, for sure. And Zero says, I learned how to get out. Hold on. I learned how to get out that being dependable thing, because companies will try to take advantage of you because of that. So I cut them off at the tracks. Yeah, and I don't know, it's like, and solely because they're trying to take advantage of you. I think it's just a natural tendency for people to, if they see someone that's always there, kind of like your parents, they're always there for you, whatever. So you kind of take it for granted, or that one friend or husband and wife, like, oh, my husband's going to be there. Oh, my wife is going to be there. I don't have to worry about it. You take these people for granted until you start noticing, oh, wait a minute. The wife is looking really nice. She's going out looking like that. Wait a minute. Or the husband didn't do something, or they didn't show up, yesterday for me. What's going on? Or, the mama can't make it to whatever. What? And so it stops you and you're like, wait. So I think people should take their vacation. I think that's one thing that you can do to keep away from being so dependable. Take your vacation, let people miss you, let people say, oh, Zero's not here. Ah, Zero's the only one that knows how to do this thing. Ah, we need them. Let people do those kind of things. Let people say, oh, we need such and such. Oh, they're on vacation. Ah, man. Or, those things that really show that you're needed. You are normally dependable, right? But you're not always going to be there. Let people miss you. Let them miss you. And realize in those instances, again, you take things for granted sometimes until it's gone. So let them miss you and see, oh, this is why this person is so important. This is why we need them. This is why they come in handy, right? Or you're just gone and they're like, oh, we got this new project, but they can't take it on because they're on vacation or whatever. Or even better, sabbatical, if you're at a company that does that. I refuse to do 2 or 3 people jobs for the same pay. I don't blame you. I do not blame you. All right, guys. Well, this discussion has been amazing. I appreciate you all for being here and joining, this conversation. It's been really wonderful. I am going to go ahead and jump off. I actually didn't expect this to go so long, but I appreciate everyone being here. I definitely hope everyone has a great day. And I might come on here later, because I did a poll. Some people were saying, like, hey, I can't do the mornings, but I can do the evenings. Actually, a significant amount of people said that. I think it was like over like 66% or close to 70%. So I'm going to plan on coming on live. I'm going to plan to show my face later, but we're just going to see how how I feel, because you guys know have been a little under the weather. I feel better today, but I am going to take a little more time to rest up and, treat myself. So I will hopefully see you a little later. And I appreciate you all for being here again. I hope you have a lovely day. And bye. Have a good one. Oh, I'm sorry. Mike, my LinkedIn, it is in my About section. There is a link to that. So you can click that link in my About section. You'll see my LinkedIn, my IG, all my information there. All right. Thank you guys. Bye, lovely people.